How's it going, everyone? Data here, and welcome back to another DataCast here for the fourth and final installment of my little mini-series on the 2021 NHL off-season, going through the divisions of the National Hockey League. If you haven't already seen, there are videos already on the NHL's Pacific, Metropolitan, and Central divisions, today leaving possibly the best for last in the NHL's Atlantic Division. 8 teams, lots of talent, a maximum of 5 playoff spots. So we're going to be breaking down what those teams did this offseason, giving them a grade. Is it enough for this upcoming season, the 2021-22 season, which is just a few weeks away? Is it enough for their franchise moving forward? How do they look poised in the next 2 to 3 to 5 plus seasons? Their draft picks, their prospects, etc. What could they have done? What can they still do? And more. So thanks for hopping in on this one. If you're just listening to it, there's going to be visuals here with Cap Friendly as always on the screen here. But if you just want to listen along as you do something else, that is perfectly fine as well. But thank you for taking the time here. So without further ado here, let's begin with the Boston Bruins, a team that is still trying to hang on to being a cup contender. They have lots of deep playoff runs. They have lots of playoff and veteran experience on their team. They have $1 million in cap space right now. They're in a pretty solid enough spot. They have draft picks. They've only lost their third, so organizationally things are looking all right. In the offseason, they did lose some pieces, thinking about Nick Ritchie, David Krejci, but for the most part, the core is still here in Patrice Bergeron, David Pastrnak, Brad Marchand, etc. Taylor Hall is signed to a pretty cheap deal, I have to say, comparatively to what people thought he was going to be getting when he was in free agency. Brad Marchand's on one of the best value deals in the league. Charlie Coyle, a bit expensive for him, but for the most part, they have the people who they want here long enough. It's going to take quite a big upgrade on David Pastrnak to get him re-signed in a couple seasons' time. But at the moment, they still have the core. The window is open, and the core is here to go on a run. With that $1 million of salary cap, when it comes time to re-sign Charlie McAvoy and Jake DeBrusk and Patrice Bergeron, is that $1 million going to be enough if you take into consideration Patrice Bergeron maybe taking a bit of a pay cut? It's going to be a bit tight for the Boston Bruins. Their defense is not at its strongest, but I do like going out and getting Mike Riley. I don't know about paying him for 3 years, $3 million, but McAvoy is a fantastic defenseman, Norris caliber. He's going to have to really just find another level, I think, this season, as he's only 23 years of age right now. He'll turn 24 halfway through the year. Brandon Carlo's going to have a big role as well. He signed 4.1 until the end of 2027, so a big commitment to him as well. Matt Grzelcyk took big steps this last year. It's really Forbort and Riley who are going to have to be big pieces. And filling on forwards, of course, you have new pieces like Nick Foligno, who has a 16-team no movement clause, 2 years at 3.8 for him. He's 33 years of age right now, going to be 34 early on into this season. So, and again, big commitment, but I think the Bruins know what they're doing. I like the team that they've built here. Erik Haula, another new addition. All very serviceable pieces who I think will give them a fighting chance, not only to be top of the division, but to go on a deep playoff run. I'm not trying to say that they're aging and that their time is coming to a close, but understandably, Patrice Bergeron is closer to the end of his career than the beginning at the age of 36. I think we can all agree on that. But guys like David Pastrnak, who are going to be the leader of this franchise long term, still have a lot to give. Goaltending-wise, speaking of players who have been here a long time, Tuukka Rask still unsigned at this moment. Linus Ullmark given a 4-year, $5 million per season contract. He is going to be their starter no matter what. Could it be a shared crease or could it be full starter? We don't know yet. Tuukka Rask, I am quite certain that he will resign before the start of the season. He'll take a pay cut. He'll take a cheap deal, 1 year, $3 million, whatever. Then they find some long-term IR money with John Moore here. So I think that it will definitely get done. Just what's the term going to be? That's the big question. Regardless, they need a backup goalie. I think that will be Tuukka Rask. And he won't just be a backup. It'll kind of be what they're doing, what they have been doing in past years, with Rask and Halak being 1 and 2, where Halak has always been able to slot into that starter role if and when necessary. So I think Ullmark and Rask could definitely be that same kind of duo. Organizationally, looking into the prospect pool, I wouldn't call the Bruins prospect pool the deepest in the league. There are some nice pieces, but there are none that really hop out at me. You have guys like Zach Senyshyn, who are supposed to be big, who never really quite made the jump. Some other pieces, like I said, who are there, but none that really excite me. I think the team has to start focusing a bit more on drafting, as this, as I said, core is still great, but it is starting to age a little bit. Marchand 33, Bergeron 36. It's time to start thinking about the phase that will be coming in 3 to 4 years from now, led by David Pastrnak and Charlie McAvoy. Goaltending-wise, Jeremy Swayman could be that backup. Does he get the call up and just play with Allmark, or do they go out and get Tuukka Rask? I still think that Rask will be the guy, but Jeremy Swayman proved himself quite well in the playoffs, or towards the end of last season as well, to be a very good, even starting goalie when called upon. So you don't have Halak and Rask. You could go Rask Allmark, you could go Swayman Allmark. The options are there, and neither of them would really be bad, I don't think, for the Bruins. So they are in a good position right now, goaltending-wise. They just have to figure out, do we want Tuukka Rask to come back, who has already made it quite clear that he's willing to come back, he's willing to take a pay cut, and he wants to end his career here. So when it comes to rating the Bruins off-season, I think it was a pretty solid one. They addressed some of their, maybe middle six to bottom six needs in Nick Foligno and Eric Haula. They addressed some of their defensive needs, maybe questionably, with those exact same contracts for Forbort and Riley, 3 years, $3 million each. That is yet to be seen. And the biggest move going to get Linus Ullmark and making him the starting goalie after a lot of pain in Buffalo, but he proved himself to be a good starting goaltender. Still have to figure out Tuukka Rask, but for the offseason as a whole, I'd probably give this probably just an A-. They had needs, they addressed them pretty cleanly and easily. They didn't go crazy in the salary cap. I won't call Riley and Forbort's deals crazy, maybe a bit questionable, but I think they had needs, they addressed them in a reasonable fashion, and that is all you can do as a general manager. Now, will those moves translate to success? I can't say, but I would give it an A-, not a crazy AA+, but just a solid enough grade that keeps the core together. Taylor Hall at $6 million could be a big surprise to everybody because he was really finding his form towards the end of last season as well. So I think they could be a surprise contender if all goes well, but at the very least, I see them getting a divisional playoff spot. And looking at the depth chart just quickly here, if you're, I'm curious about seeing their forward depth. Who doesn't even make the lineup? Because there's quite a lot of forwards who are signed to contracts, even on their fourth line. Obviously, DeBrusk won't be a fourth line forward, but you have Lazar, Wagner here, and then scratches. You have Carson Kuhlman, Trent Frederick, Jacob Zaboral, just as scratches. So just to say the depth is there. Some of the teams that I'm going to be showing you later on, like the Toronto Maple Leafs, for example, I think they have a fantastic team, but one thing goes wrong, one bad injury, and the depth isn't quite there. So I think the Bruins have the depth, they have the skill, they have the veterans, they have a little bit of money, they have still some decisions to make, they have their draft picks. All is well in Beantown. Good for the Bruins. Moving on now to the Buffalo Sabres. Not too much to say about Buffalo, to be honest. They have $23.6 million in cap space. They're like, what, 3-4 million under the cap floor? If I remember correctly, I think it's 60.28. Is that it? Something like that. So they're close to the cap floor. They got to spend a little bit more money. They have two firsts, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. They have 2 seconds in the 2023 draft. That first coming from the Panthers in the Sam Reinhart deal. The return on Sam Reinhart wasn't bad. Getting the first and Devin Levi, very good goalie prospect, as goaltending has been the biggest issue in Buffalo for years now. Just yet to be seen, obviously, what's going to happen with Devin Levi. Played for Team Canada, very good prospect. Speaking of goalie prospects, they also have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. So the Sabres can hopefully cross off, we need good goalie depth in the next few years. This season's going to be brutal. Craig Anderson, 40 years of age. We thought he was going to retire after being the third goalie on Washington, and then he finds himself sharing the crease with Aaron Dell, both on league minimum contracts. So it's going to be another year of pain for the Sabres. Let me go through some things that I do like, perhaps. I like the Casey Middlestat contract, 3 years at 2.5. Keeps him as an RFA at the end of it, so I do like that deal. I like their acquisition of Will Butcher from the Devils. They were in a squeeze, the Devils were, and they got him at a cheap price. He's only 26 years of age. Yeah, he could walk next season, but give him a big role, top 2 role this season. Play first pair minutes with Yoki Haru or Colin Miller, with Rasmus Dahlin. What am I saying? He still needs to be signed though. And show him that he's going to be respected on this team, give him an A on his jersey, and who knows, maybe he signs a 3-year deal and he starts to usher in the new era. with all that money, I'm sure that Rasmus Dahlin will get them to the cap floor. He'll get signed, whether it be a bridge or a big boy deal. It'll be enough to get them there. So they don't need to go out in free agency and sign some random guy like, I don't know, Patrick Marleau, 1 year, $8 million, like you would do in franchise mode. Shouldn't need to do that. They did, Vinny Hinostroza, whatever, 1 year, $1 million. Just guys, you gotta put a team on the ice. So nothing really big to say. Their needs in the offseason were to get a good return for Sam Reinhart and Jack Eichel if they were going to move him. Currently listed as IR with I don't know if he's getting surgery, is he just recovering, whatever. But regardless, he's signed for $10 million till the end of 2026. I'm not going to make a big soapbox speech about Jack Eichel, should he move or what should Buffalo do, but I will say it has to be sooner rather than later. Not every team has $10 million and ready to spend. A team like the Rangers or whatever, that they were willing to give such big names, I don't know, Zibanejad and Kakko, but like they were getting hung up on whether or not they would trade Schneider. You just got to do it, because teams like that are not going to wait forever. They have to get training camp going. They want to get chemistry going. They don't have time to wait forever. So I don't think I see Jack Eichel getting traded before the season begins. If they were going to do it, they had to do it like over a month ago, and I foresee him missing a lot of the season. He'll probably end up getting his surgery. I don't know if he'll play another game for Buffalo, but I don't think he'll get traded before the start of this season is what I'm trying to say. Jeff Skinner is going to keep raking in the dollars. Kyle Okposo is going to swim in his bathtub of money on his yacht. They'll both just take a little vacation together. And nothing on this team is really locked in. That's the interesting part. No one on this team, let's take away the outlier and Jeff Skinner, there is no one on this team signed further than 3 years from now, and most people are just signed for 1 or 2 years. So it's interesting to see that they are not really committed to anyone, or I guess Rasmus Dahlin will be the big one, but they're not really committed to anyone except for Dahlin, and you would think previously Jack Eichel. Goaltending is going to have to be a whole new thing next season again. The carousel continues. Hopefully it'll be Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Hopefully he gets a chance to shine a little bit this year. The Sabres, you would think they'd have a better prospect pool for all their pain that they've gone through. Luckily they still have picks. They do have good prospects, of course, in Jack Quinn, JJ Peterka, really good guys. Just, I don't know, for all the pain that they've been going through for years now, you'd think it would be a little bit deeper. Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, like I said, is here, as well as Devin Levi, who's not signed to a contract, but they got him from the Panthers in that trade for Sam Reinhart. So really not too much more to say about the Buffalo Sabres. Their depth chart, like look at some of the guys making their lineup here. Like obviously Dylan Cousins is going to have a really good season. I believe he'll be looked at as one of the guys, and especially if Jack Eichel's out of the lineup, he could be playing first line minutes, him and Casey Middlestat. But then you have like Rasmus Asplund playing second line. You have Anders Bjork playing third line. It's a bit dicey, It's a bit dicey, just to say the least. So I don't think there's anything else to say on Buffalo. Off-season grade, I'd probably give it like a C+, because they did get a decent return on Sam Reinhart, but they didn't make the Jack Eichel move when they had to. The signings they made were just random, like I said, just to put a team on the ice. It's the reason they got the C+ is because I really like the Will Butcher trade, to be honest. But just a lot of just confusion that's still going on in the franchise, especially surrounding Jack Eichel. Extend Victor Olofsson ASAP. Extend Rasmus Dahlin ASAP. We're in the mid of, it's almost October. Let's get this done. We really got to get this done. We can't afford another star holding out. So that's why I don't have a great grade for the Sabres. But at the same time, like I said, I understand that they're just trying to put a team on the ice because they're not really going for anything this season. I do foresee them being, unfortunately, the worst team in the NHL. Moving on now to the Detroit Red Wings, another team that I don't see doing much, but I see doing a lot more than the Buffalo Sabres. They currently have $15 million in cap space. They have draft picks, Stevie Y at the head of the ship. They have the first, 2 seconds, third, 3/4, so that's going to be good in the 2022 draft. Dylan Larkin signed for a couple more years at 6.1. They'll want to extend him ASAP next season before he even thinks about touching unrestricted free agency. Not a lot of rights here. All these guys here, look at all these top players, all UFAs. Yes, RFA for Philip Zadina and like Philip Hronik and Gustav Lindstrom, but everyone else on the team pretty much here, UFAs. So I like Robbie Fabry when he's healthy. He is so good. Pius Patrick Kane suitors here. Inside joke, he is coming from the Blackhawks, getting a nice payday of 3.25. Like I said, again, you got to put a team on the ice. So not the best contract, but not a bad one at all, especially considering it's only for 2 years. They got Tyler Bertuzzi signed for 2 years at 4.75, so that's very good. Jakub Vrana with the Anthony Mantha deal. He's going to be continuing to have a big role, first-line sniper kind of minutes, so I'm expecting big things from him and Larkin playing together. Ideally, the first line, Larkin, Vrana, and Bertuzzi. You know, put Suter, Fabry, and Nemesnikov maybe on that second line. Give Zadina full-time NHL third, second line. I think this would be a good kind of stepping stone year for the Red Wings. Not quite a transition year, but like I said, just a stepping stone year. They did acquire Nick Leddy, 1 year, 5.5. Danny DeKeyser's contract is about to run out. Hronek extended for 3 years, 4.4. I like that deal very much, especially keeping him as an RFA. He's going to be one of the big boys moving forward. In the future, it'll be him and Moritz Seider who are going to be quarterbacking that defense. Mark Stahl, I like the 1 year, $2 million extension for Mark Stahl. He has been a trooper. He's just a steady kind of guy. He's not amazing, but again, you got to spend the money somewhere, and it might as well be a guy who really worked hard last season. Give him the no movement clause. Give him just 1 year, $2 million, and call it a day after that. But the biggest deal of the offseason has to be the acquisition of Alex Nedeljkovic. They gave up Jonathan Bernier and was it a sixth round draft pick? Was that it? In an Alex Nedeljkovic trade? Sorry, no, it was a third round pick in this last year's draft, 2021. So Bernier and a third for Alex Nedeljkovic. Still don't know why the Hurricanes did that. Yeah, you could say because he wanted to go to Michigan or whatever, but I read a lot about Nedeljkovic being very surprised with that deal. Maybe he wanted $3.54 million, but the Hurricanes had the money to do it. And Stevie Y pounces on that, signs him for 2 years, $3 million. He'll be sharing the crease a bit with Thomas Greiss, but he'll transition into the starting role, and then they can extend him after that for many years. The guy he had not only Calder votes, but Vezina votes. So I think that could really come back to haunt the Hurricanes, and Stevie Y is happy to make it happen. Nielsen, Abdelkader bought out. They have the money to afford the buyouts for the moment, so not a huge deal. Prospect-wise, they do have some big names in Lucas Raymond, Joe Veleno, guys who never quite made it yet, Taro Hirose, Giovanni Smith. Defensively, of course, I think their crown jewel prospect has to be Moritz Seider. So they have a lot of goaltending prospects, most notably Sebastian Cossa, who they just drafted. Other guys on defense like Jared McIsaac will be good NHLers, I believe. Other names that don't jump out at me because I got to admit that I'm not very in-depthly trained on every team's prospect pool, but still just nice to see a good volume of young pieces. That's just from the quick eye test what I have to say about that. So Jordan Osterley, Troy Stetcher, whatever. It's not going to be a very good team here in Detroit. They're going to be one of the worst in the league, to be honest, but it is a stepping stone year. Not a transitionary year, a stepping stone year. I said in one of my previous episodes, New Jersey Devils this season, transitionary season, not a playoff season, not a contending season, not necessarily a playoff season, but a transitionary one. This is a stepping stone one. That is the step before transition. So Wings are in a good place organizationally. I like the team, I like the prospects, I like the ideology of Steve Yzerman. Things are going well, and we're not too far away from getting back to seeing some glory for Detroit. Moving now to the Florida Panthers, and excuse me, Detroit Red Wings off-season grade. How could I be so foolish? They filled in the spots that they had to. Similar to Buffalo, nothing crazy. Great Alex Nedeljkovic trade though, so I will give this off-season a B+. Not as flashy as the Bruins because they made, five signings? But I will give the Red Wings a nice juicy B+. And that being said, now we can move on to the Florida Panthers. They currently sit with $1.3 million in cap space. They made a lot of moves this offseason. They have no first, no second in the upcoming draft. They're already moving those picks away, declaring themselves to be contenders. Sam Reinhart, already the most expensive player forward on the team, and second most expensive skater, third most expensive player overall, including Sergei Bobrovsky. Barkov and Huberdeau on two of the best value contracts of the NHL, both at $5.9 million. That's going to be an issue moving into the season after this one, because you're going to have a lot of good contracts expiring. Guys like Owen Tippett and Eetu Luostarinen, they're going to be wanting to make a little bit of money. Big Jumbo Joe's here for the 1 year deal. He's chasing a cup. So a lot of good value deals, like getting Duclair for $3 million. He can just pop off and just slot on into your first line and score whatever, like 20 goals and 40 plus points. He could do that, so that's not bad for $3 million at all. Like I said, 1.3 at the moment. Next season, maybe you let Vetrano, Achari, Marcus Nudivara, let them walk and you redistribute the money to Alex Barkov because he's going to be wanting a big extension. I'm talking 9-10 million. So, and then the year after that, Jonathan Huberdeau, that's probably when you let Patrick Hornquist walk. So I don't think they're in a really bad spot. I think the money is not there right now, but it will be there. And they've balanced the expiring years of the contracts well to make it all match up. After this, moving into next season, like I said, a lot of young guys going to be wanting deals. Noah Juleson, Spencer Knight is just a couple years away from wanting a big deal. He's the future starter. Potentially might push Sergei Bobrovsky out of his starting job. He has it could be a 16-team no-trade list starting in 2024. So maybe a buyout/trade candidacy here in these last 2 years of his deal. But regardless, the defense is very solid on Florida. Ekblad, Montour, Mackenzie Weegar had a great coming out party last season. Marcus Nudivara, Gustav Forsling's being paid very well. Radko Gudas, he's going to just put you in a coffin, so be careful. A little bit of recapture and buyout penalties here, especially with the Panthers having bought out Keith Yandel this past season. It's going to cost them next year, unfortunately, in a year that they can't really afford it very much. 5.391. So that might be the thing that haunts them the most. Prospect-wise, a lot of the prospects are up here in the NHL, like I just said, in Owen Tippett and Eetu Luostarinen. But you do have to also make note of Alexei Heponiemi, Grigory Denisenko, Anton Lundell, even Saren Noel. Very good prospects. Very good prospects. Defense, not as flashy. Goaltending, Samuel Montembeault has proved himself to be NHL capable if need be, so that's good. A third goalie. But yeah, I'm pretty impressed with the Florida Panthers. Like I said, it's sad not to have the top picks, but that's what it costs when you get a piece like Sam Reinhart. That's going to be huge this season. Reinhart, Barkov, Huberdeau, your first line. Hornquist, Bennett, who was, let's talk about coming out party. That was his last year, and he got signed accordingly. 4 years, 4.425. Put him at center with Hornquist and Duclair. Third line, Vetrano, Achari, and Verhaeghe. And that's, then where's Jumbo Joe? Where are the prospects going? That's a great prospect to have. That's just an abundance of wealth. Almost an embarrassment of riches, I dare say, at the forward positions here for the Panthers. Defense is very serviceable and strong as well. So I'm very excited to see what the Panthers do this year. I think this could be their first real contending season in a while. It feels kind of weird to say that. Like, when have the Panthers been a Stanley Cup contender? Like, with John Van Beesbrook in the 90s, and when they won their division with Jose Theodore in nets when the Devils went to the Stanley Cup final because Adam Henrique scored in overtime of Game 7. What year is that? 2011, 12? Oh, I just looked it up. It was the 2011-12 season. Oh, I know my Jose Theodore history, that's for sure. So it feels weird to say that, but I think the Panthers could definitely be up there this season. And man, I'm excited to watch the Florida Panthers. Not something you hear too often, but I'll say it again. I am excited to watch the Florida Panthers this season, and lots of good candidates for guys to draft if you're doing fantasy hockey as well. A lot of good pieces. It's going to be a high-scoring hockey team. So, for the offseason moves, I give this team an A. I give it an A. Sam Reinhart is here. Sam Bennett got extended after he was a great trade acquisition at the deadline of last year. Prospect pool is deep. Everybody seems to be happy. It's just the Keith Yandel, I think, buyout that's keeping it from going to an A+. That's going to hurt next year, but I give them an A. Good stuff here in Florida. Bill Zito, take a big smile. Speaking of top GMs, though, now we go to Le Canadien Montréal. Marc Bergevin, I love him. I just go by the numbers here. Him and Zito had the top GM votes. It was those two and Lou Lamoriello. So don't blame me, blame the numbers. As many of you know, it's no secret, je suis un fier partisan de la Canadien de Montréal, and I'm wishing them a fantastic year this year. But now we got to put on the objective sunglasses here. We got to look through it. No rose-colored glasses. LTIR being used is quite extensive with Weber and Byron being on there. So cap space currently at $0. The cap hit $88 million. So they're going to have to work everything out and make sure the LTIR and everything's being used right before the season begins. They have one first-round pick. They'll lose whichever one is better to the Coyotes due to the Christian Dvorak trade. 1 second, 3/3, 2/4, 2/7. I like that. I love having picks in the draft. You know me. Moving into the organizational makeup now. The Canadiens had an extremely busy offseason. I do have to say that. Jonathan Drouin coming back. Mike Hoffman getting signed, Dvorak being traded for, Armia extended, Lehkonen extended, Paquette and Perreault both signed in free agency, Savard signed in free agency, Weidman signed in free agency, Price exposed to the expansion draft and Cale Fleury gets taken, Weber's career is possibly over, Byron in the long-term IR, Logan Mailloux getting drafted, just a lot of stories, of course. So they've been in the media. That's an understatement this last season. So looking at, again, let's look through the objectivity as much as possible here. I already spoke a lot about the Jesperi Kotkaniemi offer sheet in one of my last data casts, but I do have to say that I'm quite pleased that Christian Dvorak is here. He is 25 years of age, and it was a high price tag. I do have to say that. I was hoping it would be the first and the third. It cost him a first and a second, but he is signed for 4 years at 4.45. And that's what you got to pay for in the NHL. You have to pay for term, you have to pay for good digestible cap, because when the cap is so tight, that becomes more valuable than anything. You see teams like Vegas trading Fleury for nothing because they're in a bad sitch. That's what happens. I do like that a lot of the players here are signed long-term. Gallagher and Anderson both signed to the end of 2027. 2 more years on Drouin. Mike Hoffman, he signed a 3-year, $4.5 million deal. Low-key, one of the better snipers in the NHL. Not one of the better players. Not good defensively, blah, blah, blah. Yes, I'm not saying that. But one of the best snipers, one of the best goal scorers in the NHL. Underrated due to his entire style of game. Slap him on the power play, just give him the majority of his time there. I think he will thrive on the Montreal Canadiens. I think this is a team that will be conducive to his player type and his makeup. Tyler Toffoli, 3 more years at 4.25, very good value deal after the season he had last year. Yoel Armia, a bit expensive at 4 years at 3.4, but I'd like him to play up to that price tag. Yoel Armia last season was pretty much exclusively used in a third, fourth line role, penalty killing time. So I really want to see him get into the middle six, give him the power play, give him the penalty kill, and really make him worth that $3.4 million, because he has shown flashes of that brilliance. I just want him to really earn it if he's going to be getting it. Lehkonen, probably his last season here. I don't think he'll get extended after this year with other contracts that need to be signed. Guys like Ben Sherratt or Alex Romanov, Nick Suzuki, etc. So for the time being, he is a penalty killer, bottom six kind of guy. I think he's a very good player. I think he's an underrated player, but $2.3 million, I don't think he'll be able to afford that next year. So he has to play his heart out to earn himself a contract next year with somebody. Cédric Paquette and Mathieu Perreault, both depth signings, fourth line, interchangeable kind of pieces. I like them very much as well at that price tag. Cole Caulfield's going to be playing a top 6, possibly first line role this season. People are saying, can he do it? I think he can. He showed himself to be absolutely capable of doing so. So look out for a Calder Memorial type season from Cole Caulfield. Nick Suzuki as well going to have a big season, pretty much centering the first line now, as the Canadiens lost Philippe Danault, most notably in free agency to the LA Kings. Jake Evans, on league minimum, is going to, a 7th round pick, is now going to be finding himself in a third line everyday NHL role. If we look at the depth charts, we find that he'll be listed third line center, I believe. Exactly. So first line, Toffoli, Suzuki, Caulfield, Hoffman, Dvorak, Gallagher. Obviously, this is interchangeable, but then Drouin could play center, could even be middle 6. Who knows? Maybe he swaps out with Hoffman. Hoffman, you give him less time 5-on-5. You put him on the third line, Evans and Anderson. And then fourth line, Lehkonen, Paquette, Armia. And then you have Perreault, Belzile, whoever else as your healthy scratches. Defensively, with Shea Weber possibly out for his career, that means that it's likely going to be either Petrie and Sherratt or Petrie and Edmondson on the first defensive pair, and that'll leave Savard and Edmondson or Savard and Sherratt for the second defensive pair. Still a very serviceable top 4D. Petrie, what a season he had last year. He signed for 4 more years at 6.25, but it's going to be tough to now, without Phil Danault shutting down Connor McDavid and without Shea Weber shutting down Connor McDavid, now you got to leave it up to Joel Edmondson, for example. So it's a bit scary in that sense, not because I don't trust the abilities of Joel Edmondson, very good defenseman, led the league in plus minus or whatever, but it's just, we're talking about Connor McDavid here. We're talking about the best players in the NHL night in, night out. who do they have to get by? You got to have a guy there. So maybe someone else can transition to that role. Maybe Jake Evans has learned a bit from Phil Danault, and he can be that kind of pest that it's hard to play against. Who knows? But just to say, I hope all that is taken into consideration and that guys like Alex Romanov can even get a chance to be kind of that shutdown defenseman, as he, I really hope, gets a full 82 games this year and doesn't get seventh defenseman for Chris Weidman to come into the lineup, or for who else is down here in the system? So, Xavier Ouellet to get called up or something. It's okay. I'd rather have Alex Romanov. Even if he makes a few mistakes, I'd rather have him in here. He's going to have to get signed next year. So will Nick Suzuki. So will Jake Evans. So there's a lot of money that needs to be given out next season. Ben Sherratt, maybe he doesn't come back. It's a bit of a tight situation cap-wise, I do have to say. Carey Price backed up by Jake Allen. A very smart move by Marc Bergevin. I like that bluff. If Price got claimed, maybe we're talking a whole different story, and Jake Allen is the starter, and I don't know what, could they still survive that way? But regardless, they get to keep Price and Allen as opposed to having to lose one or the other. So I like that very much. Obviously, I like it more because it worked. But we're not talking in a world where it didn't work. We're talking in a world where it did work, and that's where I can say I did like it very much. So Price and Allen, obviously he's still recovering from injury right now, but Allen, one of the best backups in the NHL, and prove that he is able to take the crease if and when needed. Looking into the prospect pool now, I do like the Canadiens prospect pool very much. Obviously, I know it a bit more, I guess, intimately than other teams' prospect pools. But Jesse Ylönen, Jan Mysak, Cameron Hills, Ryan Poehling is probably going to be a full-time NHLer this season, so I would see him not on the non-roster, but up here on the actual forwards. He'll probably be swapping around with Cédric Paquette for that fourth-line center role, trying to fight his way in. Very good defensive pool for the Canadiens. Caden Gooley, Matthias Norlinder, who's trying to make his way onto the starting night, under the opening night roster. Josh Brook, even guys who aren't listed here like Jaden Struble, Harris. So there's a lot of good prospects in the Canadiens pool, especially defensively. Caden Primo is really a good one as well, that unfortunately doesn't get a lot of NHL time because there is Price and Allen here. So hopefully it doesn't turn into a situation as, other goalies have seen, like Charlie Lindgren, guys who were kind of pushing for the NHL, could have been there, but there was just no room. They got buried in the AHL, and their careers never really went anywhere. So I hope that isn't what's going to happen, kind of like a Tokarski or, like I said, a Lindgren. Not stars, but just guys who I think could have been NHL caliber, even backups, but never quite got that chance and just fizzled out a little bit. So Montreal Canadiens coming off of a Stanley Cup final appearance. People think that they're going to be taking a step back this season, but I don't think so. I'm not saying they'll make the Stanley Cup finals, but I think their regular season at the very least will be better than last, because the pieces that left, Phil Danault's a big hole. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, I'm more sad that he's gone for what he was going to become, not for what he was. So Christian Dvorak being here, Mike Hoffman being here, better depth in Paquette and Perreault as opposed to Alex Belzile being here. I'm happier to have Paquette, Perreault, and Weidman than Belzile and Xavier Ouellet. So I like the depth much more this season. I think Caulfield and Suzuki are going to be better. They're surrounded by better pieces. So again, not saying the Canadiens are going on a Stanley Cup run, but I do think that they'll have a better season than the last in terms at least of the regular season. I think they'll continue to move forward, and I do see them making the playoffs. People think that they're the odd team out that didn't do anything in the offseason. I think they did a lot in the offseason. The only thing that scares me a little bit is possibly the defense without Shea Weber there. But give Alex Romanov a good offseason, have him come back and come into a new level that he's never been to. Throw David Savard into the mix with the Stanley Cup ring, and I think that this team is ready to go, and I'm very excited to see this team play. Obviously, some cap issue depending on the long-term IR moving to next season. Some jiu-jitsu will have to be had, but I'm really not too worried. I do trust in Marc Bergevin at this time. So there are the Montreal Canadiens. Les Canadiens de Montréal sont forts. And now we move on to the Ottawa Senators. Ottawa Senators, interesting team. I'd say they're ahead of Detroit and kind of in the same category as the Devils, where I'm talking about stepping stones and transitionary years. I think this is a transitionary year for the Ottawa Senators, and I do like what Pierre Dorion has been doing. 2 seconds, 3/3, 3/7 in this upcoming draft, 2/7 the year after that, so stockpiling a few picks. The only thing that has to get done ASAP is sign Brady Tkachuk, and of course, I keep forgetting about giving these teams ratings. So I'll go ahead and give the Canadiens a B+ right now. A bit unfortunate that they let Kotkaniemi walk. They didn't sign him sooner. They did make the best of it. They've done the best to plug the holes defensively, and I'm not really upset with anything per se, but I am very happy with certain things like Mike Hoffman and Christian Dvorak. So you know what, I would actually give it an A minus, not an A or A plus, but I would give it an A minus for what they did do, and what's holding them back is the things they didn't do in terms of waiting too long on Kotkaniemi, and then not, I don't know, addressing the left side of defense quite enough. It's still, jury's still out on that. So I'll leave it an A minus for the moment. And I am very pleased again with the stuff that did happen and making the most of the situation they were in. But sorry, back to the Ottawa Senators. Still waiting to see what they're going to do on Brady Tkachuk. They have the money to make it happen at $24.5 million. They're still like $4 million under the cap floor. So that should be fine as soon as they get him signed. They did get Drake Batherson signed for just shy of $5 million until the end of 2027. Colin White signed up. Connor Brown, who had a great season. Chris Tierney, 3.5. And not a lot of money, though, dedicated to the forwards here. You have your top 4 forwards who are all making between 3.5 and 4.9 million. Some teams, their 5th forward is making more than that. So Brady Tkachuk, whatever it's 8 years, 8 million, whatever it's going to be, I think it's going to be a massive deal. That makes him the highest paid player on the team. Probably a bit higher than Thomas Chabot, who is signed for 8 million till the end of 2028. So I like that they have the big pieces signed up in terms of Chabot, Batherson, and hopefully soon Brady Tkachuk. Colin White also signed quite long as well. Next up, we'll be getting an extension for Josh Norris, and then Tim Stützle, Shane Pinto ASAP, Alex Formenton soon after that, Eric Brandstrom even. So the question becomes, do all these pieces become pieces that we want moving forward? Do some of them become trade bait? Do some of them not quite make it, depending on our organizational needs? Questions for Pierre Dorion to answer. I do like that there's a lot of youth in the lineup, but I would have liked a bit more supporting role. Like, for example, they lose Evgeny Dadonov. Like, looking at the depth chart here, I like that the youth is getting so much help, but if you're putting an AHL team out there, how much are they really going to learn without anybody to really give a lot of help out here? Austin Watson, the oldest forward on the team at the age of 29, like, I need some veteran something out here. I need someone to guide the children. I need something going on. Tim Stützle, so skilled. This whole first line, so skilled. I'm not saying they can't do it without someone holding their hand, but it's a lot of youth. I'm glad that Shane Pinto is going to get some NHL action. I'm glad that like Bernard Docker could probably get some NHL action, Alex Formenton, all that. But when you lose a guy like Evgeny Dadonov, you lost some goals. You lost a good 20 goals, 50 points in an 82-game season. So who's going to replace that? I'm not sure if Shane Pinto is quite replacing that yet. So I don't see the Senators having a good season. But like I said, I do see them having a transitionary season in terms of the skills of the players. Just because Tim Stützle is going to have a big 60, 70-point season, it doesn't mean I see him carrying them to the playoffs. They're such a good, hard-nosed, like fight-to-the-end team. But again, it's just, I don't think we're quite at sneaking into the playoffs yet. Defensively, we got Zaitsev. Del Zotto was on like PTOs last season. Now he gets 2 years, $4 million. So hey, good for him. Got to spend the money somewhere, like we said. Matt Murray backed up by Anton Forsberg. Bobby Ryan, Dion Phaneuf in the dead cap. But of course, we do have good goaltending depth in Philip Gustafsson and Mads Søgaard especially, who have gotten some NHL experience. Defensively, Bernard Docker, Lassie Thompson. And then forward-wise, of course, you have Yarventi, Greg, Sokolov, who's going to be pushing for the team as well this season. If you've been watching any of the Senators' social media team, they love pushing Igor Sokolov stuff. So off-season-wise, I would have liked to see the Senators do a bit more in just getting some pieces. I don't know, like, hey, Bobby Ryan, I know we bought you out, and like whatever, but how do you want a league minimum contract to just come play like third, second line and try to score 15 goals? Like, hey, why not? Hey, Patrick Marleau, you want to come here and just have a season of making $1 million? Why not? They got to spend the money somewhere. Yeah, they could spend it all on Brady Tkachuk to just get to the cap floor, but I don't know. Them still holding out on him is another issue, holding back the offseason grade. Defense is not convincing either, to be honest. Chabot and Zaitsev, Zub, all serviceable enough. Del Zotto, I like Del Zotto a lot, but then we start to drop off after that. Brandstrom has to start to grow more as well. I'd probably give this offseason a B- to a B, but that's not necessarily reflective of what they think they'll do this season. Like I said, I could see Tim Stützle scoring 60, 70 points, but I still don't think this team is in a position to win yet. It's different definitions of transitionary. I see the New Jersey Devils transitioning into a sneaky playoff contender, perhaps last wildcard team. I see the Senators transitioning from bottom of the league to, okay, now we're a team that has to be reckoned with. And at the same time, I see the Detroit Red Wings being a stepping stone team where they go from bottom of the league to, okay, we're starting to gather our pieces. We've got them signed. Let's get them learning chemistry together. And once we're really jiving and gelling a year or two from now, that's when things are coming together. The Senators have already been together. Their core is already here, but it is young and it has to grow. Hope I'm making sense with everything I'm saying, but that's what I have to say about the Ottawa Senators. I would have liked a little bit more from them. I like what they have done, but I would have liked a little bit more, and the Brady Tkachuk holdout is kind of scary a little bit right now. Still think it'll get done, but a little bit scary, I do have to admit. I like the prospects, I have to say as well. I like the prospects, the defensive prospects especially. Tampa Bay Lightning coming off of back-to-back Stanley Cups, of course, with $0 in cap space at the moment. They have no second, third, fourth round picks. In the year after, they have no second in 2023. They're trying to make the cap work. They're doing everything they can. Julien Brisebois is calling every single person he knows on his contact list to try and make the salary cap work. And you know what? He's making it work. Corey Perry, cheap 2-year, $1 million. Bang. Maroon getting paid still $900K. Pierre-Edouard Bellemare, 2-year, $1 million as well for him. Barré Boulet, 3 years, $758K, gets him to agree to that. Mathieu Joseph, 1 year, $737,500. So good value deals for sure. Convincing players that this is the place they want to stay for another run at a cup to go for the three-peat. Jan Ruda, who could be making $2.53 million, getting paid $1.3 for one more season. Obviously, a lot of the money tied up in guys who are going to be here for a while no matter what. Hedman, McDonough here till 25, 26. Nikita Kucherov signed $9.5 till 2027. The big Braden Point extension pays him $9.5 until the end of 2030. Steven Stamkos, $8.5 million. So the big boys are never going to leave. The core is not leaving. Andre Palat, I do see him probably being a candidate who will have to walk after this season. 5.3, they don't have the money for him. They have to get, either, I don't know if they're going to re-sign Maroon or whoever else, or Jan Ruda, but I don't know. It's interesting when I look at now on Cap Friendly. It's really 2024 where they run into a lot of issues. Maybe they could run it back for one more year. If you could convince Palat 1 year, $5 million. That is possible, I do have to say. So I wouldn't necessarily say that the days are numbered here in Tampa Bay. The window is not closed. I could see this next season, even next season after, still working out with this money that they're working with. It's the year, even Sergachev and Chernak and Cal Foote, though, in 2024. So 2024 will be the year of reckoning for the Lightning. But 21, 22, and 22, 23 are still cup contending years for Tampa for sure. Brian Elliott backing up Andrei Vasilevsky, 1 year, $900K, a little bit of veteran presence, a guy who won't really play too much when he's backing up one of the best goalies in the NHL, signed till the end of 2028. Brent Seabrook on LTIR. Prospect pool, I wouldn't call it the deepest. As I've said before, I do like the quantity here. Taylor Radish, Antoine Morin. I like some of these guys. I don't know if a lot of them will make the league, especially making Tampa with such a packed roster. They could be kind of like the Pittsburgh Penguins, where they have the bottom six constantly rotating, slap a guy like Zach Aston Reese on the first line with Sidney Crosby, and it works out. So, take one of these randos, take Gabriel Fortier, put him on the first line with Stamkos, and then see him get paid big time in free agency in 2024, right? Who knows? But no one, again, that really jumps out at me in terms of the names that I know. Just, I do like the quantity. I always like a good quantity of prospects. Whoever sticks. Whoever doesn't. Boris Kachuk, Taylor Radish, they're both 23 now. They have 3 more years at $750K. Will they ever make it? Who knows? Maybe they become that part of the team that transitions in 2024 to the NHL lineup when these guys have to walk. Many, many possibilities. Hugo Alnfelt could be the backup in a year or two once Brian Elliott leaves. Who knows? Things are looking good in Tampa. They re-signed the players that they want to. They did lose some pieces for sure, but they are looking poised for their Stanley Cup run. And I'm going to give them an A rating, not because of necessarily doing a lot of stuff. They didn't have the flashiest offseason, but they just did what they had to do. They gave the pitches. They got the people signed on, like exactly like Jan Ruda for 1 year, 1.3. They convinced them to go on another run, and the window's still open for, at the very least, 2 more years here. So I like what they did very much, and the A rating is well-deserved in my eyes. Well done to Julien Brisebois. The picks, unfortunately, are drying up, but like I said, the prospects are here. So not bad at all here in Tampa Bay. They are poised for another run at Stanley Cup. Going to the Toronto Maple Leafs now. What I was just saying about Tampa Bay and a team like Florida is that they have depth in their lineup. Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm going to go through their team in a moment here. One of the better teams in terms of the names and the scoring power and everything. But I am very scared when there's no depth. In a sport that provides so many injuries, in a COVID world, etc., we need depth on our teams. One thing goes wrong, and I think it could be disaster for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And I don't say that as a Canadiens fan. I say that just looking at objectively as possible. So the Maple Leafs do have $1.3 million in cap space. They have no third, fourth, fifth, sixth. So it's never fun when you're not picking between, like 5 rounds from the 2nd to the 7th. So the Leafs should try to replenish some picks. We'll look at their prospect pool in a moment. Of course, you have Matthews, Tavares, Marner, Nylander, all signed for the minimum of 3 more seasons. Tavares and Marner for 4 more seasons. Kerfoot on a decent enough contract. Nick Ritchie, I like his contract very much, 2 years, 2.5. Mikheyev, who asked for a trade, is still here. 1 more year for him. I doubt he comes back. Kampf, Kasha, Engvall, some 35 plus contract for Jason Spezza. Wayne Simmons is still here after a tough season, I'd say, last year. Defense is the biggest problem. Jake Muzzin, 3 more years for him. Morgan Rielly's going to want big money, and I think that's going to be a disagreement between him and Kyle Dubas and his agent for how much he's worth and how much Dubas is willing to sign him for. So that could be an issue, especially as a potential UFA. TJ Brody making $5 million for 3 more years. Justin Hall, 2 years, $2 million. That's a good deal. Dermott, 2 years, 1.5. And Rasmus Sandin on the last year of his entry-level deal. So this is the Leafs top 6 right here. If you have an injury to the top 6, already it's a tough top 6, I have to say. Morgan Rielly and TJ Brody, your first pair. Muzzin and Hall, your second pair. Dermott and Sandin, your third pair. That's a rough third pair. Let's say someone on your second pair gets injured here. TJ Brody, even. TJ Brody gets injured. Justin Hall moves up to your first pair. Rasmus Sandin, or Travis Dermott actually, moves up to your second pair. Who's playing third pair with Sandin now? I guess Timothy Liljegren is going to come up. Who else could play? I don't know. Alex Biega? That's the depth on this team. Extended injury, and you want to make a deal to trade for a depth piece to help out? Well, you better be ready to pay up with a big draft pick, your first, your second, or dive into your third, fourth, fifth, sixth in 2023 now. Not to mention there's not really any cap to make it happen either. So, if all goes well, no problem for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Matthews is going to score 50 goals. Tavares is going to have a big smile on his face, the highest paid second-line center. Marner's going to get 70 assists. No problems in Toronto land. But I am afraid of the defensive woes. They did get they did get a brand new starting goalie in Peter Mrazek. Not sure if that means they don't necessarily trust Campbell to be the starter, or because you got to look at the dollars paid here. Are they sharing the crease? I don't know. Do you pay the guy, Peter Mrazek, double what Campbell is making if you want them to be sharing it 50-50? I don't know. I feel like this sends the message that Mrazek is going to get the slight majority of the starts and Campbell's going to back him up. Maybe they don't trust what happened after the collapse of the Canadiens in the playoffs. I don't know. Hosang and Gusev as on the professional tryouts, PTOs, that's great because if they could get them signed, that would be great for the forward depth. David Kampf, your third-line center. Michael Bunting out here. Mikheyev and Ritchie are your top 6 wingers. I don't know. I really don't know if that sells me. Nick Robertson, give him full-time in the NHL? Okay, that's what I like to hear. Maybe get, Malgin is on loan in Switzerland. I'm not sure how long that loan is or what the exact details of that are, but I guess I'll just assume that he's not playing, so I won't count him. In the prospect pool, yeah, you got Amirov, you got Nick Robertson, like I just said, Simeon Dargachintsev. Defensively, you got Liljegren, Hollowell. Goaltending, they do have Joseph Wall and Ian Scott, two decent goalie prospects. So I want to see Nick Robertson get a lot of NHL ice time this year. I don't want them to forsake him in favor of Michael Bunting, even though he's signed for 2 more years. I think money-wise, it could be a bit of an issue after this season. I'd say let Mikheyev walk, but then you have like $3 million to sign a second-line right winger, you know? So, and then you have to find a way to sign Morgan Riley as well. So I think that they're going to be in a lot of cap trouble. Signing your top 3 players. If you look at the pie chart here, look at Matthews, Tavares, and Marner, how much money they take up. Right here, these 3 guys, that's a lot of the pie right there. Add in Nylander, 8.52, or almost 50% of the entire team. If you do add Muzzin, that's over 50% of the entire team. It's a lot of money. It is a lot of money. Comparatively, there's not a lot of players or teams that have 2-3 players that make up that much of the cap percentage. So I'm not trying to rag on the Leafs. Again, I know I'm a Canadiens fan. I like the Leafs as a team very much. Matthews is an elite goal scorer. Marner is an elite playmaker. When they're on their best, they're President's Trophy contenders. But the depth is not there for a deep run. That's why there's so many playoff woes. The defense cannot hold up over 82 games and 16 playoff victories. They need to add to this. Use that first and second if you have to. I don't know what, but I don't think it's going to happen if the top 6 defense, if the defense on October 1st, 2021 is the same as the defense in April of 2022, and those 6 names are Muzzin, Riley, Brody, Hall, Dermott, Sandin, I don't think the Leafs are going to be Stanley Cup contenders. Maybe they were finished 3rd in the NHL and Matthews won the Maurice Richard and whatever. But I don't think they would be actual contenders for the Cup because teams with depth, teams with experience, and teams with, I don't know, just forget the depth, just better starters. I don't know if I trust Dermott and Sandin for my 3rd pair. And that's, and that's my starting 3rd pair for 82 games. That's the issue. So I hope that gets fixed from a hockey objective point of view. I hope that the Leafs fix that if they want to have a deep run because people are going to start getting sick over here. People are going to get sick and tired of things not working out. I could see William Nylander being a trade candidate in a year or 2 if things continue not to work out. Eventually, Kerfoot, Ritchie, even though they're signed for 2 years, I don't know if they'll keep signing on. So not trying to say the Leafs are about to go into a massive downward spiral, but I'm saying that those are the things to fix. I don't think Toronto fixed that this offseason. Granted, they didn't have a lot of money to fix it with, but pretty much the only thing that they did was sign 2 professional tryouts, which we're yet to see if they make the team. They traded for Peter Mrazek, or they signed Peter Mrazek, and that is pretty much it. The Nick Ritchie at 2 years, 2.5 will boost their rating a little. I guess I'll give them like a C instead of a C-. But I'm not really happy with this offseason for Toronto. I really, especially after what happened with Montreal in the playoffs, I thought they would have learned their lesson and say, okay, let's have a big talk here, closed door in the war room. Let's think about, do we make a big splash? Do we think about, okay, we'll trade Kerfoot, we'll trade Nylander, we'll trade our 1st and or 2nd round pick and get a good defenseman who has term and who is very serviceable for the top 4. It's going to cost us a lot, but now we're going to really have that missing link. They didn't do that, and they still don't have their 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, which puts them at a disadvantage and barely any salary cap space. So that is what I have to say about the Toronto Maple Leafs. There is a lot that still could be done, and I'm not sold on Spezza, Simmons, Bunting in this bottom 6. Call up Robertson. Don't be afraid to put them in the press box. Don't make TJ Brody a pack mule who has to play 82 games of 1st pair when that's not what he's ever really been, I don't think. Maybe not since his Calgary days a little bit. Don't put misguided faith in Justin Hall just because he had a really good end of last season. Don't try and do all that and then blame them when the organization let them down and didn't get the pieces that were needed. Maybe these guys all have great seasons and Toronto goes on a run. Hey, fantastic. But those are just my thoughts as of now here in September of 2021. So that just about does it for the Atlantic Division, my friends. When we're thinking about who is going to make the playoffs, I could see it being very similar to the 2019 playoffs, where in the Metropolitan it was the Capitals, Penguins, Islanders, And in the Atlantic, it was the Bruins, Lightning, and Maple Leafs. And then the wild cards were the Hurricanes and the Blue Jackets. So replace the Blue Jackets with the Panthers, and then I think that's a bit more realistic. But I did say that I believe the Montreal Canadiens will make the playoffs. So it's going to be a very tight battle. You know, one wrong turn for any of these teams, and it's disaster. One bad injury for the Leafs on defense, bang, playoffs could be done. Boston Bruins, one bad turn for goaltending, Allmark gets injured, now Swayman has to be your guy and he's not ready for the load to be the starter for 60 games, bang, playoffs gone, who knows. So many things can happen in NHL season, totally impossible to predict, but I do see the Canadiens, like I said, I think they'll make the playoffs. It's going to be fringy, it's going to be dicey, it's going to be a bit scary. I do think they've improved nonetheless. A lot will hinge on the Metropolitan Division, how many teams out of there will make the playoffs. Same thing goes for them. One wrong move on the, for the Hurricanes, maybe Freddie Anderson and Antti Raanta don't play so well, and then starts to fall apart. So many just unknowns, and that is why we love sports, my friends, headed into the 2021-22 NHL season that is just around the corner. So speaking of hockey and everything, if you enjoy fantasy hockey, you should join the Discord server, link in the description, because we're going to be starting up another fantasy hockey league. Last year we did one with 12 teams, I believe. I'm anticipating a 20-team fantasy hockey league, which will be created on the Discord server. So if you want to hop in for that, you can, free by the way as well, just for fun, you can hop in by joining with the link in the description. Other links in the description include the link for the Twitch page where I do live streams. I've mostly been doing MLB The Show franchise mode, but with NHL 22 around the corner, make sure that you are subscribed as well here on YouTube and following on Twitch for NHL 22 content, most importantly, franchise mode content. So stay subscribed for news coming out in the coming days and weeks pertaining to that. Very excited. Hopefully, I won't be totally let down. But thanks for watching this and listening to this series of DataCasts as well. If you enjoyed this little series, let me know. What would you want to hear about in a podcast type of style moving forward into the NHL season? Maybe weekly, bi-weekly, monthly type of things, talking about the league, its news, etc. Or maybe just blockbuster trades. What kind of things would you like to hear about? So all of the feedback is very much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Let me know in the comments, what do you agree with? What do you disagree with? I'd love to have a further discussion on the Atlantic Division down in the comments. If you enjoyed this DataCast, leave a like as well, as it really helps the YouTube algorithm world now that I'm a partner on YouTube, so that is very much appreciated as well. And I will leave you off there. Wishing you the best moving into the 2021-22 NHL regular season. Wishing your team the very best of luck. And thank you for listening to this series as I broke down the 4 divisions. It'll be interesting to come back and listen to them closer to the end of this season to see what kind of predictions were right, which ones were wrong. But nonetheless, it'll be an exciting time. So thank you so very much for watching and listening. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one.